How's it going, everybody? It's been a while since I created a video or published a video, but today's video is going to be hopefully to help those that need help on fixing their machine. This is the second time that this has happened to me. When I first got my 60 watt CO2 laser machine, everything worked great, and I was burning and cutting and doing all kinds of things and experimenting and learning the machine. And roughly about 2 to 3 months after I got it, I was in the middle of a job, and the thing was going back and forth, scanning and burning. And I always pretty much like to monitor the machine while it's working in case I need to stop it or whatever. Well, while I was watching it, then I noticed that it stopped doing anything. I mean, it was moving, but the laser wasn't firing. So I tried all kinds of things and looked online and see what I can find to make it work. And there's some videos out there, but it's just hard to determine what the problem is. Well, I'm gonna give you a little rundown. Now, we know, or hopefully we all know, that when you're using your machine, okay, we're gonna crank up the machine. In order for the laser to fire, you have to have the water running. I've got a little cooler here that basically the hoses run into, and there's just a sheet of paper in there, and the machine won't fire if the water is not running. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to tell it to pulse, and I think it gives us an error. That's basically water error. So we're going to hit escape, which is right here. Okay, now it knows that there's no water flowing. What I do to keep my laser tube cool, I now have this cooler, and let's say we're going to turn on the water, and I now have water, and it's still got to pump up and come back down. And it'll get all the bubbles out, whatever. And here's a water currently is at 71 degrees. Okay, there's a constant flow. What I do is I get some gallon Ziploc bags, and I'll actually do that right now. So there's a gallon Ziploc bag. And in order to keep my water cool, I'll just set that in there. So now I've got a big block of ice that's keeping the water cool. So when I'm burning, that the water doesn't get too hot. So we'll go ahead and close that. We can see we've got water flow. So we should be able to go do a pulse. And you already know that that's pulse. It's going to fire now. And nothing happens. Moving over. Okay, so what we're actually doing is we're going through the controller down to the board, which is the controller board. So when we hit pulse, we're telling something here to trigger the power supply. Here's the main power supply for the machine and for the motors, to make the thing move back and forth, left and right and whatever. And this is the high voltage power supply. This you put 110 in, which is basically your house power, into here, and you get 12 or 24 volts, whatever the machine needs for the motors. This one, you get 110 in, but you're getting like 1,000 volts or more out of the machine. That is the very dangerous wire to be careful with. That is what actually triggers the laser tube to fire and start the burning. So when we're hitting the pulse button on the top, we're telling this to go ahead and send a signal to the power supply to go ahead and turn on the laser to fire. So you've already got one component here, which is the top button, telling this to do something, to tell this to do something, to basically fire. So we have a lot of things in process going on. So if we want to simplify things, there is a button down here, a little red button you can barely see, right there, and I think that says test, but I'm going to show you a better view. That again is the power supply for the laser, which I have my first one that I replaced roughly about a year ago. So that button there says test. So as long as you have the water running and you push this button here, you're telling the power supply to fire the laser, and you're bypassing the controller and the other controller, or the display and the controller. So that'll tell you whether it's power supply or the laser, and it's not something in communication here. So we can narrow down some items. So we got water running. I'm going to reach down here and push the test button. And you can see me reaching here. Right there. Okay, I'm tapping on the button and nothing is happening. So I'm doing multiple taps. Tap, 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 tap. I'm going to move the machine over. Tap, 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 and nothing's happening. Okay, so what I did the last time, I bought this power supply on eBay, and it roughly ran about $118, just like my new one did. There is my third replacement. That's the one that came from the factory. This is the one I bought a year ago, and here's the one that I just bought. So I'm going to open that up, uncrate it or unbox it, and we'll put it in and we'll see what to do. Now you pretty much want to make things easy for yourself, is get the same one. That way all you have to do is unplug that connector, there's a couple of screws on the top that you unscrew, and I believe there's a couple more down here in the bottom as well, which is right there, and there's another one on this side as well. Yeah, it's right there, right next to that connector. And what you do is you take this one out, and this red wire goes up through a hole right there, and it comes up, and I'm going to pause the video for a second to clean out the top. Okay, I've cleaned off the top, so now we're going to open up the door here. That red wire basically comes through a hole right there, which is kind of hard to see. I'm twisting the camera around and the phone around, and you can see where it comes up a hole. And there's a, I've got it taped up because it's high voltage, and there's a silicone plug, but that's where it comes up. So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is pull this thing up. I'm going to clean it up. You can see the water running right there too. So I'll clean that up, and here's the negative side. There's the other wire that comes from the power supply. So over there is plus, this is minus. This is very high voltage. So all you do is pull these little connectors off. They give you some silicone when you buy the machine, which I've got mine stored down here. So I'm going to pause it, swap this out, and then we'll see if that fixed our problem. Okay, I currently took off the 4 screws, which is the 2 top ones and the 2 lower ones. Now I just got to follow this cable, and we're going to come up here. This thing should just pull right on up. I'm doing some wiggling. I'm twisting. Okay. Okay, that just pulled out. And that's loose. So this is really the only one we need to mess with. We don't need to mess with the other one, because that's part of the connector that I pulled off the bottom of it. But what we do need to do is get a knife and take off all this rubber around this peg. There's a little metal peg that the wire connects to. So I'm going to go get a a X-Acto knife and cut all this silicone off of it. You'll see the clean spot in a little bit. Okay, cleaned off most of the rubber silicone. So nice and clean. That's glass right there around it. So now we're basically ready to install the other one. And the wire will come through the hole that's right there. That's kind of hard to see. That goes down to where the power supply goes. So let's open up the power supply, the new one. Okay. I will put a link on the video from, I guess, the person that I got it from, and basically I'll focus in here. It came from a person named Bannon right there. Okay, I think I paid like $118. And I believe the shipping was free. As you can see, this is identical to the other ones, and it makes it a lot easier to change out. There's no trying to figure out what wire does what. It's just a direct replacement. Connector's the same, so there's no wires to move other than the one that goes to the laser tube. And that's what fixed it for me the last time. It basically did the identical thing. So right now, there's only two things that can be wrong: power supply or the laser tube. I would rather buy the $118 power supply than the $200 to $300 tube. So I want to go cheaper route first. So we're going to take off the connector. And as you can see, the other connectors are ready, waiting to connect to this. So I'm just gonna put this other one in. I'm gonna uncoil the wire. Okay. So I'm gonna pause the video and install it where it goes. Okay, we got the power supply mounted. Connectors, one of them's not connected yet, but I've got the wire fished up through the hole up there, and it's coming out right here through that same hole, which is kind of hard to see. And I've got to strip a little bit of this off, so basically, so I can wrap it around this peg, then put this rubber boot over it and put some silicone in it to insulate it, and then we'll do a test fire and see if that fixed us up. So pausing again to make these final connections. Okay, so I stripped off roughly about a ½ inch, enough to give it a couple of wraps around that little peg. I don't know if it's focusing in, but there we go. So there's a couple of wraps on that. So now I'm going to put some caulking on that because we want to make sure that it's well insulated. This is high voltage, and you don't want any of this stuff sparking around in here. So there's some on that. I'm going to put some on the cap right here. Okay, so now I'm going to slide the cap on there. There we go. And that should be a nice good seal. Okay. Let me cap off the silicone. Okay, so I'm closing the door where the laser's at, and actually we'll leave it open. Okay, so we're almost to the moment of truth. We'll go ahead and turn on the machine. I'm going to double check my connectors, make sure everything's connected in here. Everything's connected. Okay, first thing we'll do is turn on the machine. Okay. Turn on our water switch. And without even pushing the the test button on the power supply, I'm going to do it off the controller. And there we go, we got smoke. And if I move the machine out of the way, actually there's my dot. So that's going to get me back up and running. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hold pulse and I think move at the same time. Let's see if we get a cross burn. Pulse, and there you go. So my problem was the power supply. I don't know if they just put something in there that's just barely enough to handle, or maybe just they just wear out. But again, it's $118 off of eBay. I forget what the part number is, but it's very easy. If you pick the same one, it's a direct swap out, and no headaches as far as switching wires around or whatever on the blocks. Well, I hope this helps some of y'all out, and y'all take care.